You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney podcast. Two friends since before one of us stopped sleeping on the ground. Now guides on your nostalgic tour of Disney history, one magical film at a time. I'm Eddie Ferguson.
And I'm JB Waggoner. And on today's episode, we remember that only one of us has ever been a king. The other was just the herald, as we review The Sword in the Stone.
So fasten that safety restraint and pull up on the yellow strap. It's time to open the vault.
Cue that Disney-ish sound effect. Eddie, I got my first question for you is, have you ever considered being a squirrel?
I think maybe post Emperor's New Groove. You know, I think everybody.
Try to think about what other animal you'd want to be.
Well, the scene there is so epic in Emperor's New Groove with the talking and squirrel. Everybody kind of had to do their own version of that.
Yep.
Man, where do you start with this movie?
Well, let's start where we normally like to start, which is going back to nostalgia. Was this a everyday an every week watch for you? Did you watch this a lot growing up as a kid? Like, take me back, Eddie.
I have no memory of this movie prior to maybe a year and a half ago.
Wow, that late.
A year and a half, 2 years ago, we were scrolling through Disney Plus, and Lewis sees the thumbnail for it. And he's like, "I want to watch that one. I want to watch the Sword movie." And I'm like, okay. And it's become like one of his favorites.
Wow, what is so intriguing to him about the Sword movie?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think some of it has to do with kind of the silliness. There's a zaniness to this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also has to do with their swords, knights, kings. You know, what little boy doesn't kind of get a little bit excited about that?
Is there that much of it, though? Is there that much?
Not as much as you would think there should be.
For a movie called Sword in the Stone with its epic opening, and then it just turns into this something else.
Merlin movie.
This Merlin. It's the Merlin movie. No, my son. His favorite part is the witch's duel or the wizard's duel, whatever we want to call that section,
because that is just
with the marvelous, magical, mad Madam Mim. I had to write it down.
Did you remember that off the top of your head?
I had that written down. There's no way I was going to remember that.
And what about you?
Well, my son also we didn't watch this one together because I was trying to fit this in last minute. And I remember when we watched it, I don't know if it was a year ago, a couple of years ago, and he was cackling through the whole him falling through the sky through the ceiling, and him just like tugging on his beard and like Merlin stuff. It's funny how they really did almost nail it on the head for just little boys. Like, it is kind of a little boy movie, but in a weird way, it doesn't. The setting almost has no meaning to the plot line, the story. You could have taken this whole thing and plopped it in
anywhere.
The 80s, in 2020, in 2034. Like, you could have gone anywhere with this story, and it probably would have also worked there too.
Well, and I don't think it's that strong of a story. Like, it's very paper thin. I think there's maybe 3 really strong story beat moments, you know, where it's like, okay, and the plot just progressed a little bit. And then the rest is just these huge.
What plot really is the
Arthur
underlying
getting to the sword? Like,
that happens in like 2 moments, and it's an accident.
Well, and I think that's just what's hard for me, is because like from the outset, like this is what you're anticipating, right? Like you are waiting for him to get to that moment, or like what obstacles does he have to overcome to get
Mm-hmm.
to that? And there's none of that. It's just like these weird
obstacles.
happenstances. It's like, oh, now he's in Merlin school. Oh, now he's a squire. Oh, now he, and it's just kind of like, oh, and then there's this magical wizard witches duel going on, and none of it seems to really connect with, is he going to pull this sword out of the stone?
Oh, and the sword, like, it alludes to it at the front, and it's kind of in those in-between scenes that kind of like, hey, we're going to go to London. No, now we're not going to go. Now the squire's gone. But like, those are like minimal moments of this movie. The majority of this film is spent on, well, like the setup to Merlin and Arthur meeting. And then it's like these 3 tests, you might say, or maybe it's just 3 random. It's literally, have you ever considered being a squirrel? Poof, now we're squirrels. Now we're going to play in this world. Have you ever thought about being a fish? Now we're going to be that. Have you ever thought about being a bird? Let's do that for a little bit. And then you end up with Madame Mim near the end. It's the most there is nothing, there's almost nothing pushing this story along. There's no ticking clock. There's no antagonist, really. Like, even the brother, the step brother thing doesn't really pan out to much at all. He's like, be quiet, kid. And that's about it. Like, it's pretty uneventful. Like, not uneventful, but just like unmotivating, the majority of this film, to me at least.
Well, there's very little conflict.
The bird. Oh, so like when he's the animals, he's got like a momentary, we got a predator fish, and then we got a predator. Yeah,
but I mean, like,
bird,
basic storytelling is escalating conflict, right? Like, you're building on your conflict, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep, you're right.
Nothing builds in this. Even the moment that he pulls the sword out of the stone is just kind of like accidental, It's just like, oh, I forgot the sword. What are we going to do? Here happens to be one. Pull. Ma. And then even like everybody's like, hey, can you do that again? Okay. Plop back in, pull back out. He's the king. What?
And then it's anticlimactic as the king. Then he's sitting in the chair as the king when nobody's in there. And he's trying to leave, and Merlin comes in at the end, just like, oh, you're the king. Okay, I guess we're gonna I gotta help you out on this one too. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, so if I were redoing this, I would somehow make him pulling the sword out of the stone the top of the 3rd act, right? And somehow there needs to be some invading barbarians that are coming, and everybody's it opens with like their first attack, then everybody's trying to get prepared, and there's like preparation for that. Sure. Mulan in England. And then like he pulls the sword out at the top of the 3rd, and it's like, here's the long lost king of England, and he now has to use his new position to lead them against the barbarians to save England. It's just like, there's none of that. And you could have pulled that off in a cartoon. Like, okay, we could have done, like you said, Mulan. We've got it in other movies.
Yeah, so that's what drew me into, sometimes you watch bad films and you're like, how did we get here? Like, what happened to make this happen? And there's 2 things. One, the source material itself is based off of the book Sword in the Stone, which is actually part of an anthology called The Once and Future King from T.H. White. And most Britons, at least that I've looked up online, I've looked up all of them, every Briton ever,
all the Brits?
All of them. And there is a lot of fondness for this story, for this series called The Once and Future King. It's like, I don't know what the American equivalent of it is, but it's like, this is a story that so many people know. And even that's
Once
not
and Future King is a well-known. It makes its appearance. It's in a lot of different movies. Probably the one that's most famous is X-Men 2. Magneto is sitting in his plastic prison. He's reading Once and Future King.
Yep.
Like it appears like that. It's like these little Easter egg in a lot of different movies.
So this is obviously the story of King Arthur, but it's actually adapted from Sir Thomas Malory in the 1400s when he himself was an imprisoned king. He penned these legends of King Arthur called Le Morte d'Arthur. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly at all. So that's written so long ago. Well, then they kind of come back into style when T.H. White in the 30s, in 1938, writes this first book, which he thought was just going to be a one-off book called The Sword and the Stone. People loved it. They raved about it. And then he made 3 other books all the way up into 1958. It's part of an anthology. But what's funny is the majority of them are very much like what you would think of King Arthur and like going into battles and all these crazy things. Well, this first book really was more of a child story. And it does have kind of a zany, kind of silly Merlin character in it. He is actually, which I thought was interesting, because I would hear him do all these like references to the future, like electricity and other things like that. And like, is this just silly stuff? Well, no. In fact, in the original book, he's going backwards in time. Like he's already been into the future and he's coming backwards through time as everybody else is going forwards. I don't know how that happens in the book because I haven't read it.
Time travel.
Yeah, reverse time travel to some degree. And so it's funny that this story kind of does hit the original source material, maybe more accurately or more to the tone and vibe as what the author wanted to before he then took it into other worlds with the next 3. The other thing was interesting of how we got here, and I don't know if you had done some reading on this, was like Walt's involvement in this.
Yeah, like we're in the distracted era for Walt. Where he's kind of done with feature animation, and you can kind of see them begin to cut corners, the whole Xeroxing thing. This is now the second movie to do this. I read that Roy, Walt's older brother who actually runs the business, is attempting to say, hey, let's just not do animated films again.
Yeah.
They're not that great of a return on investment. We've got all these other amazing things going on with the park or whatever. And we get this movie just because, well, okay, maybe we'll do one every 3 to 4 years and we'll just kind of see what comes out. And so I think this film really represents where Disney animation is right now in its history. It's aimless.
Rudderless, yep. Mm-hmm.
It's rudderless. Walt is very much focused on feature films, and he's very much focused on the parks, big time on the parks. And so animation is very much like been there, done that, like conquered that mountain. He's doing other things. And so there's no strong creative leadership there.
Yep. So Bill Peet was the head story man for this. He also did 101 Dalmatians, which did actually really well at the box office. But apparently,
so did this one. I mean, this didn't do too shabby. It did decent.
But I don't think it did the numbers that they needed because after this movie came out and it didn't blow the doors off of anything, it really did pull Walt directly back in to almost save the animation studio because his brother's like, see, it's not doing anything great. And so Walt is heavily a part of the next films that come out of the studio at this point because he's like, I gotta get back in, and evidently he had a lot of fun with it, and then he makes some more films along this time. 2 more. Speaking of nostalgia and good old days, as we try to transition this to other things, in high school, we had to do book reports all the time. It felt like everything we had to do was a book report for some odd reason. So there were 2 books for me that I did multiple times because we had 2 English teachers, and I did the same 2 books with both of them, I believe. One of them was the biography of Dave Thomas, who is the founder of Wendy's, which is great. But the other one I did was King Arthur. And I believe it was an adaptation of Sir Thomas Malory. And it's the weird. So this isn't these stories. It's actually the ones that precede it. And it's just the weirdest bunch of stories of just knights doing random things. I can see why there's been so many knights movies. Why did you select
those two books?
Well, the Dave Thomas one was, I don't know if it was accidental. I just liked Wendy's. And so it was just, they took us on one of those like couple field trips that we would go to the actual library. Yeah. And like peruse. And I was just like, the actual library. Yep. And then all of a sudden there was just like, that's Dave Thomas. That's Wendy's. Yeah. It's like, I needed to do a biography. And I was like, I'll just do it on him. And then the next year I had a different English teacher. And so I got to do the same, but I just read it again for them. Well, I did the same thing with Arthur. That was more, I remember that was, at least once we had like a very specific list we had to pick from. And King Arthur was on there. I was like, oh, this has got to be good. And it was so weird. Just so many weird things with like knights, like the white knight and then the red knight and then the green knight and then this knight or whatever. But it is nothing like this movie. There's nothing almost like Merlin. The two Merlins are nothing alike.
So question, have you ever seen an adaptation of this Arthur legend that is good? I mean, I think of like the Jerry Bruckheimer one in the early 2000s with circa Pirates of the Caribbean, you know.
Oh yeah.
Who all's in that? That's got a
Keira that one was Knightley weird too.
And it's honestly, weird.
Honestly, what's coming to my head is just, now I can't get it out of my head, is just Monty Python.
Yes.
As your Holy Grail might be the best one that's been out.
The best one that pulls it off. And then there was another one not too long ago with I can't remember his name, but yeah, like all of them have been misses, like just kind of been odd, which is interesting to me because like the premise, like the idea of Arthur and, you know, this legendary king, like there's so much there. Yeah. Like it should work. But to the best of my knowledge, like none of them, any of the adaptations have ever really pulled it off.
It might be that
this one is part of that.
Oh yeah, it's like the legend and the basics of the story are so good that people trying to make the movie are like, well, I gotta one up this.
Yeah, but they try too hard.
Yeah, it's like you try too hard to do something that's already really good. Like, how do you top it versus literally just making a make remake, and people just, I think, try too hard on this. But
which is, I think, what happens in a lot of things. Speaking of trying too hard, have you ever seen somebody try to pull the sword out of the stone at Disneyland?
No, I haven't.
So this is how this movie is represented in the parks, is behind the carousel or in front of the carousel, however you want to think about it, between the carousel and the castle, is the sword in the stone, both at Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom in Disney World. And it's an entertaining little thing to watch anything from little kids to full-grown men going up there and with all of their might trying to pull that sword out of the stone. And it is a well-kept Disney secret as to how it actually comes out or doesn't come out. There's rumor that there's like a cast member nearby with like a remote control, or there's a cast member up in a window that is looking, or, you know, if this light is on in this window, that means, you know, you can do it.
The next one, it's ready. One by land, two by sea. Is that kind of how it works?
Something like that.
Well, because it doesn't come all the way out. It like slides higher and then it like makes a sound, right?
Yeah, I mean, it comes out like maybe almost full sword length. And then it immediately retracts back down in.
Was that originally in the park, or was that a later? Well, I guess it couldn't have originally been because this movie came out after the park opened. But
it's a later edition, yeah. But let me talk about what was my favorite representation of the Sword in the Stone, kind of the Sword in the Stone in Disney parks. The Magic Kingdom used to have this thing called the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, where in Main Street, Adventureland, and Frontierland, right? No, Fantasyland, Adventureland, and Main Street. You would enter the park, you'd go over to the fire station, and they would sign you up, and they would give you this little pack of like trading cards and a map. And you would have to find these secret windows all throughout the Magic Kingdom and hold these cards up, and there would be like a camera that would read it and turn on like all of, things would start moving and lights and everything would come up and the screen would somehow appear. And it was Merlin. You were helping Merlin save the Magic Kingdom from all the Disney villains.
Oh.
And those cards you had were like different spells. And so based upon the villain that you were fighting, you'd have to hold up, or it would lock in and you could like control. And I mean, this is like, 2014, 15 when this came out. So I mean, this is all like still very cutting edge technology. And you could play through and defeat a villain, and then you could play through and defeat it had multiple playability to it. And each time you would go back to the Magic Kingdom, you could ask for another pack of cards and you could collect them and get other ones. And you were helping Merlin save the Magic Kingdom from all of the villains. It's called Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. It was one of Sarah and I's favorite things to do, but they took it away because of COVID, they said.
COVID.
Which doesn't make any sense because you're like, well, you're literally all by yourself walking around. That doesn't make any sense. And they never brought it back, which is just super, super sad because it was
come on, Disney, be
really,
better.
really, really cool. It's a really, really cool thing. So that was my favorite representation. And I think Merlin is a great character. He's just kind of a fun character. Maybe I shouldn't say great character. I think he's, how would you describe Merlin? Like, he's like, okay, yeah, he's like a Disney character. He pops up in parades and you're like, oh, cool.
Easily angered. And kind of like, he just gets frustrated with people and then leaves and poofs and is gone.
Like JB and I when we're hungry.
Yes, we just leave and go find food immediately.
We are both very prone to hangriness.
We're also very prone to mimicking things that we love, including the opening of this movie, which is the book opening. At this point, we've had so many of them that I'm like, I want to know how many Disney movies have used the literal book opening for the start of it. So I asked ChatGPT. You have to correct me if I'm wrong on any of these. I found not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, but 8 different animated movies that all use this. We got Snow White, Pinocchio, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Sword in the Stone, Robin Hood, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which actually uses it throughout it. And the last one, which may not be totally right, but it kind of does, is Beauty and the Beast. It uses stained glass in the prologue. So it's kind of on the fence. So maybe it's 7.5.
Enchanted. I was thinking Enchanted.
Oh, well, live action. There you go.
But it opens as a animation.
Animated
film.
But I was just like, this is a thing that it's a go-to. And so many other movies do it as well. Wish opens. I have forgotten everything about that movie except for the annoying songs that keep coming back in my life that I can't get out. I can't get rid of.
Well, remember Wish, speaking of ChatGPT, that's what wrote Wish. So of course they're going to see.
I like the segue there.
They're going to see how many times it was used and go, oh, we should use it.
It really does. Like that story, what it really was. Hey, ChatGPT, write me a Disney movie for our 100th anniversary that uses elements from all the yeah, that's
yes. Somebody check Jennifer Lee's search history.
Church history.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well,
okay.
Is there much of anticipation on what we're gonna rate this?
Oh, I think
just let's
hold our breaths here.
Slide it right back in the vault.
Slide it. Let's just push it back in, like where it was supposed to be all along. I know our kids seem to really like this. I don't know why. We're still trying to seek out some professional help for them, but no, this is.
Lewis will ask me to watch it, and I will do any and everything to like distract him over to something else. Or
it's not that level. It's not that level. It's been a long time since we've watched it with them. But I just remember sitting there going like, he really likes this. Why? Yeah. This confounding. But
yeah, it's interesting. Well, now that we are all or not filled up on nostalgia, we've got some Disney news for you. Little juicy stuff that came out right before last week's episode that we just kind of held. So we had some time to marinate on it, allow it to percolate our brains. But then some other things have come out. JB, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah. So last week I can't remember if we mentioned it or we didn't really get to it, but Disney and DirecTV were at odds over another licensing deal. All basically how much DirecTV had to pay Disney to get its channels. The big one being ESPN, like, is the big dog that everybody wants to have, because the live TV is about all that's left for cable bundles now. And then Disney would force them to take all the other channels, like the Disney Channel and FX and everything else under the sun that Disney owns. Well, we missed 2 weekends of college football and 1 weekend of NFL football, where the ESPN was just blank, no, nothing. But then the Emmys came around, and ESPN had a little bit more, or Disney had a little bit more desire to get that televised on DirecTV, because they were hosting it on ABC. And so they got a deal done right in the nick of time. It was either Friday or early Saturday, getting everything back. But Eddie, did you hear one of the conditions that they had to make it happen?
I know nothing. About this.
So DirecTV is now going to have the one. All DirecTV customers are going to either get a reduced rate, or it's going to be an option for them to have Disney Plus as a part of their package deal. But then also, they are opening up what's called skinny bundles. So whereas they got to charge customers $20 a person for everything, now they're opening it up to have where DirecTV could sell smaller packages that are a lot cheaper, if for people who like don't want any sports and just want everything other than sports, or they just sports only packages, and kind of separate out all of their different channels that they include in it. So it's really interesting. Go online and find some articles about it.
So make your own.
Yes. So that's the thing people complain about, is like, it's expensive. I'm paying for all these channels I don't watch.
Yeah.
Well, now with this deal, it's starting to crack the door open. You're going to probably see a lot more companies doing this too, where they can go, I just want to give my people, I just want to pay for $40 for sports, or $50 for just sports, or I want $35 for no sports and just all the other channels. This is going to start breaking and start to make it more of a reality. I think you're going to see here pretty soon. So it's a big deal for Disney to start opening that up, because all these cable companies are losing money. So Just wait and see.
Well, isn't DirecTV and the NFL under a pretty huge antitrust lawsuit right now as well because of the NFL Sunday Ticket?
Oh, yeah. We're still waiting on that to see how that's going to happen with all these people that have paid, including myself. They never gave a option for single, can I just watch the Colts? That's all I want. Is just give me the Colts games. But no, you got to pay for everything. And now they're under investigation for antitrust stuff. So that could also break things open too.
It is interesting how they're going to keep playing with the whole streaming, cable, new reality. Mm-hmm. I think we're just going to keep seeing new tests and variations on it all.
Well, and more of the streaming options are bundling. Yeah, which is kind of funny.
You can get
more bundle
HBO
options.
Max and Disney Plus now, right? Like those two together.
Yep.
Which is really, really interesting. Also, Disney Plus news. This came out like the next day after we dropped an episode. Is that Inside Out 2 is coming to Disney Plus September 25th with a new, just in time for a new deal. If you are a new customer or a returning customer, i.e. not JB or I, where like you get 3 months for like $1.99 a month, which is how much
super cheap.
I paid for my first 3 years.
Never going to see that again.
No.
And they're also timing this with the launch of Agatha All Along, hoping to get people in as that show is heating up this week even. So I know we're excited to kind of check it out.
Oh yeah, it comes out this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will be watching that one by myself. No one else in this house will be wanting to watch that or should.
Yeah, exactly. We're also starting to hear some buzz about a potential Scarlet Witch standalone movie. I don't know if you've been seeing this as well, but there's been more like tea leaves dropping because there's no movies really other than Avengers set for 2026. And there's a lot of buzz about what are they going to put there, what they need to start like announcing some stuff. And there's just been little things popping up here and there on some people saw some things on Twitter and on Reddit and other things about a potential Scarlet Witch standalone movie, which excites me because there was no body in the Multiverse of Madness movie. I think, and it's the arguably the best standalone show that they've ever done is WandaVision. Does that get you excited, Eddie, for Marvel?
I think Elizabeth Olsen is one of the better actors that they have gotten in the whole series. Mm-hmm. Like she's pretty freaking amazing. WandaVision just kind of allowed her to flex her muscles. Yeah. I think we still go back to, I just didn't like what they did with the character with Daring Doctor Strange. Mm-mm. I don't know if it was so much that I didn't like what they did with the character. It was more or less, the story, it just seemed like it contradicted WandaVision everywhere. That being said, I mean, she still did a phenomenal job. And she was terrifying. I mean, like when she's just going all out that was just downright terrifying. So yeah, I'd be interested in it. But at the same time, if you were to be like, okay, Eddie, what are the movies you want to see? Like, what are the ones? This probably wouldn't have come up. Like, I really want to see another Shang-Chi movie. I think that for me would be higher on my list than this.
But it's getting pushed.
It's getting pushed back, which is kind of sad to me because I really like that one. Yeah, but okay, we'll see. I'm getting optimistic. The new Captain America looks really good. What they're trying to do with the Avengers and kind of go classic here. Let's see. I'm here for it.
Me too. I wouldn't mind seeing more Scarlet Witch. They're doing a good. I think they're doing a good thing by going hey, who are the characters that you all loved? Because let's just bring them back. Let's keep them going, or at least the actors in Robert Downey Jr.'s case. But okay, so
and I think
the
that
real
goes back to the heart of the MCU. Like, this has always been more character based than necessarily event and spectacle based. Like, at least that it at its initiation.
Yeah.
And then we got to these epic Avenger movies, and they thought, oh, that's what people really like. Like, that's what they're paying money for. And it's like,
tons of characters together. Yeah.
We liked Iron Man. I was sick a couple of weeks ago. I think I mentioned the kidney stones, and so I had to lay flat on my back. I rewatched Iron Man 2 and 3, and it was like, oh yeah, these are really good movies. This is like and it's mostly character. It's just Robert Downey Jr.
in a cave
and Trevor
by himself. And Trevor. Oh man, that still blew my mind. I love that.
So
I
good.
love that character.
And then they brought him back for Shang-Chi.
So good. Maybe that's why you love Shang-Chi as well. It's like
maybe
25% of the movie.
I love Trevor. Have we saved the best for last?
Yes, we have, for sure. So the last little piece is something that kind of blew up actually maybe a couple weeks ago, and we just didn't have time to talk about it. Maybe we don't have time today. I don't know. But we got to talk about it. It's that New York Times article that's like the rest of the story, which let's just call this what it is. This is Chapek's side of the story. It's interesting because in this article, which shout out to Eleni for in Twitter or Reddit for sending me the archive.org version of this so that we didn't have to actually have the New York Times paid subscription to read it. But it basically, a lot of these stories we had kind of heard in different times, even from the New York Times, but it goes back through and it's almost like it's like if you saw an entire scene happen and now you're getting it again, but from a different perspective and with little new nuances, like we had heard about them flying on a plane together somewhere. This is and to say it again, this is the story of the unraveling of Chapek's reign and of all the points leading up to Bob Iger choosing Chapek as his next in command, the tumultuous time they had together, and then him ousting him and since. But you're just getting little nuggets. So like they're on a plane together. Chapek is now trying to get him to talk about things, and Bob Iger just wants to talk about his yacht. And so Chapek leaves and goes to the front of the plane, and that makes Iger mad. And then it's like, I kind of get, if this is true, I kind of get where Chapek's coming from. Like, you would kind of be ticked off if he's not taking you seriously. But overall, like the some of the big revelations from this are the whole reporting structure of like him having to report to Iger and the board when this whole thing happened. As
CEO.
Yeah, as CEO.
You're not CEO then.
And also the rushed nature of it, where even the board was like, we don't really want this. And then he gets hints that COVID's happening. And then it's just like, no, we're doing this today. We got to do this now.
It's super suspect, right? Like, well, what's interesting is, so a lot of these things, kind of like Bob Iger's attitude and everything, were hinted at initially. Everybody was so excited and relieved that Chapek was leaving. Not necessarily because of Chapek, but people just didn't like the changes that were happening to the Disney company, and he was the guy in charge, so everything just fell to him. And even as all that was going on, there was just kind of these things. I remember even as Bob Iger came back, everybody in the Twitter sphere and everything just kept going, yeah, but remember, Bob Iger was still there he was still making the decisions for this. He was CEO when this decision happened, and people were piecing it all together. And I would say in the past year, it has tilted more and more away from Bob Iger. Like the blind fandom is less and less. And when
the billionaire summer camp really kind of was a dividing line for people like, wait,
Right. So that would have been last summer, right? During the writers and actors strike. And then multiple times he had his things. Then he had his little kerfuffle with Elon Musk, which I think Elon definitely won the meme war on that one. So like, it just kind of, okay, you're not the second coming of Walt as you try to portray yourself to.
And his PR is not Teflon anymore.
Sure. Right. Exactly. And so what was interesting is as this article dropped, multiple kind of Disney Facebook groups that I'm a part of, boom, popped it out there. And overwhelming, I would say a good 70% of all the responses are like, oh yeah, wasn't a huge Chapek fan, but it's obvious he got the short straw. This is really all Bob Iger's fault. And like fans are kind of lining up behind that narrative of the story. And I think this one coming out of the New York Times kind of helps balance the two sides. He is not the second coming of Walt Disney, and the decisions that he's done hasn't been that great.
It's interesting to see also. I was kind of shocked when it said that Chapek had become friends with Nelson Peltz.
Yeah.
While this whole thing was kind of going down. And I was like, that's fascinating. And why it probably emboldened Peltz a little bit to go as aggressive as he did, because his inside track was suddenly lifted out from underneath him. Like, I thought that was really fascinating that ended up probably even forcing him deeper into doing all of his stuff that as he came out against Disney later on, and that we've talked about, chronicled on here quite a bit. That was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I also, you just leave this article just feeling how vain Bob Iger is. Mm-hmm. And you're going, what? And at times petty, just like, are you an 8-year-old boy here? Like, what in the world? The whole thing about not and putting his retirement party when he knew Bob Chapek would be at another event. Mm-hmm. And then Bob Chapek checks him by canceling that event and going to be there. And then Iger giving that dirt track and Terre Haute story and going, hey, ain't that from your neck of the woods?
That's your neck of the woods, yeah.
And just kind of being, well, and of course I kind of take offense to that where you're like, what? You're just trying to make fun of Indiana? Like, what? Come on. You can't do that. So yeah, it just all kind of came across real petty, restaurant reservations being a motivation for wanting to stay in the job just doesn't sit well.
Sounds like Hollywood.
Sure, right?
Everything we've come to know about the pettiness of Hollywood and the backstabbing. Oh, it's even in a beloved company that people who should know better. But
I think what's hard is that you do have a large fan base that's still very much,
loyal.
Longing for the Walt days, just kind of more wholesome imagery of it all. I mean, Walt wasn't his perfect self, but and each CEO has tried to project that. I mean, there's these incredible stories of Michael Eisner versus Roy E. Disney versus Jeffrey Katzenberg, and how vain they all got, and then somehow Bob Iger sneaks in and he takes it. So I mean, this article is intriguing. I think it all makes everybody kind of perk up and look even more for whenever Iger's going to actually leave. They've already extended it. He's there until 2026. It's just all very, very interesting. It's like, let's enjoy what we enjoy, and let's not put too much into this here, folks. I think one last thought here, it does put into perspective a little bit of Iger hasn't really done anything new. This sparked a lot of other debates of people comparing him to Eisner. And, Eisner, you saw, incredible expansion of the Disney company, trying new things, going into new types of businesses, sometimes failing, but also, succeeding wildly, like the cruise line. And Iger's not done that. Iger just acquired other people's ideas. Pixar,
Star Wars, yeah.
Fox, Lucasfilm, like that's just all he's been good at, which is like, and he's tried to pride himself on being a leader of creatives and culture of creativity and everything like that. And you're like,
he's just really good at parties.
Yeah. Like you're faking it, dude. Like you're just good at mergers and acquisitions. Like that's not creativity. So
it's fascinating. The last little bit that I just wanted to call out is people always were waiting on what is Chapek gonna sue Disney for kicking him out. Well, we find out why he hasn't, because evidently he said that his children and grandchildren are a Disney family and couldn't bring himself to file a lawsuit that might hurt the company. That was funny. It was both, it
kind of makes you endear to him a bit.
It's also probably PR speak. Like he's probably more likely they're like, you sue us, you don't get any of your money, and you're probably getting paid really handsomely. But and this is the only way he could do to kind of get his story out, is like under deep background. But
it's all his assistant, his chief of staff. Yeah,
just leaks everywhere. But you can read it and go, oh, I'm hearing the same stories, but I'm hearing it from the other side of the story. Yeah, it's funny.
It is. It was a riveting article. I gotta say,
it's
like
long. It's super long,
super duper long, but like hard to put down. And my thought immediately afterwards was, get this to Aaron Sorkin. We need the Social Network treatment on this.
How funny would that be?
It would be fantastic. So, well, before we go, JB, I hope you and the family have a wonderful week. In fact, I know you will, because you get to see me in 1 week's time.
We're so excited. We're going to be hanging out, not this time in a week, but a little bit less than that, which is going to be awesome. Get to see you guys, get to hang out for a little bit. And my son has a birthday coming up soon, and we might need your help with something while we're in town. We're trying to figure out, he won't communicate to us. Other than the fact that he believes he has 2 birthdays, and we don't know why. We can't figure it out. He keeps telling us, we're like, when's your birthday? And he says, it's this day, and it's also this other date that's 5 days after it. And we're like, what is it? He's like, my birthday's on this day and this day. I'm like, buddy, you only have 1 birthday. He's like, no, like we're also doing stuff on this day too. I'm like, where are you getting this? The only thing I can think of is that we usually do something on his actual birthday, but then usually that's like a Tuesday or something. And so we have to like wait till the weekend to do something. So I don't know if just like 3 years ago, we celebrated his birthday on the middle of the week, and then we also did it on a Sunday, and he's like holding on to that. But he keeps on throwing out this other date. And I'm like, that's not your birthday, buddy. That's not your birthday at all.
This happened this year with Lewis because of, and I think you hit on it. We celebrated on his actual birthday, and then he had his party at school.
Yeah.
And he kept calling, well, this is my 2nd birthday. And he's like, and then the whole time he's going, when I come home, do I get to open up more presents for my 2nd birthday? And we were like, no, you already had your birthday. And he's like, no, but this is my 2nd birthday. And we're like, no, this is like your birthday party at school. Like you're going to get a few like little tiny gifts from your classmates, but like, no.
Well, Eddie, you're going to have to help us convince him, because he is still convinced, and he's got plans. He has written down, drawn out plans for both birthdays, and we're trying to talk him off of it.
What do they involve? Depending upon what they involved, I may or may not talk him out of it.
I mean, there's so many things. It's everything from the presents he's going to get to the different activities he's going to be doing, which are all high ticket dollar things like go-karts at 2 different places and a jungle gym and video games and cake, and it's everywhere. We gotta stop it. And so in a week's time, we will probably be enlisting you in helping us rein this child back in because it's going crazy.
I'll see what I can do. I'll work some Costa Rica magic on him here a little bit.
Well, sweet. Well, with that, you've got your weekly dose of Disney nostalgia.
Be sure to subscribe to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast wherever you listen to your other favorite podcast, and give us a look on YouTube as well.
While you're there, please like or leave a 5-star review and share it with your best friend.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com, where you can see all of our nostalgic reviews of Disney movies.
Tune in next week as we review Mary Poppins.
Thank you for listening, and remember that love business is a powerful thing. It's the greatest force on earth.